I met Jimmy Mirikitani in 2001. He was on a street corner in my neighborhood in Soho, New York City. It was a very, very cold January in New York. And Jimmy was out there with all his artwork set up on these shelves outside. I didn't really know much about his history or the art beyond the cats and the flowers and the bright colors, and that he always seemed to be making art. No matter what time of day I would come, he was out there making something, often with a Bic ballpoint pen, which he later told me he used because it didn't run in the rain or the snow. The materials he used were quite eclectic, basically anything he could get his hands on. And if he was out of paper, he used pieces of wood. When I met Jimmy, his English was somewhat limited, and initially I had difficulty understanding a lot of what he said, and so we communicated through the art, and I think that's how he communicated with a lot of people. Jimmy's past turned out to be very complex, and a lot of it I learned through his art. That he had been born in the US, so he was an American citizen by birth. He'd been born in Sacramento in 1920, but that he had returned as a fairly young child to Hiroshima, which is where his parents were from. He had lost his home in the US by being incarcerated as a young adult in the Japanese American camps in the US during World War II, and lost his home in Japan through the bombing of Hiroshima. And once I understood the links between losing your home in such a profound way in the past and winding up on the street 60 years later, I saw that his story was much more complex. Jimmy was really an artist as well as an activist. He was making the art because he wanted that history to be known about what happened in the camps during World War II and about the bombing of Hiroshima. He was not there at that time. But obviously the atomic bombing of Hiroshima was clearly something that was a deep source of trauma, I believe, in Jimmy's past, and he made many, many images of that event. He was really on a mission to educate Americans about our own history by creating images he wasn't seeing in mainstream media. It really wasn't until I met Jimmy that I did further research and learned that 120,000 Japanese Americans were locked up in these camps during World War II solely on the basis of their race. The camp that Jimmy was sent to was Tule Lake in Northern California. It's really important to know this history so that we don't repeat it. And I think that's part of why Jimmy was so determined to share these images about the history that he had personally witnessed and been deeply affected by. He always drew the same landscape: the mountain, the wall, the fence, and himself trapped behind that fence. After we took Jimmy to the first Tule Lake pilgrimage in 2002, his drawings changed. First he drew the fence with an open gate instead of closed. Then he drew it falling down in decay, the guard tower in decay, and he never put himself in that landscape again after we went back there together. So for me, he got out of being trapped in that place. I think, like any artist, he had to make art. It's just who he was. I also think that making art for him was a way of processing his life experience, both the trauma, but also the joy. And that's why, his art is so impressive to me, in that it ranges from deep tragedy to joy and playfulness. I think making art is both evidence of his ability to incorporate that range of experience, but also perhaps the way he survived.